Welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo in Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. Passengers from the Braemar Cruise Ship that was allowed to dock in Cuba this week have finally boarded a charter plane that will take them home to the United Kingdom. The ship had 6 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 virus on board, with dozens in isolation. It was left stranded in the Caribbean as regional governments denied it permission to dock. That is until the Cuban government came to their rescue. Officials from the UK collaborated with Cuban authorities to allow the arrival of 3 chartered British Airways flights that will take hundreds of passengers back to London. Cuba has confirmed 3 new cases of COVID-19 in the island, bringing the total to 10. The island has also recorded a first death due to the pandemic, a 61-year-old Italian tourist who was among the first cases to be detected. Health authorities had previously announced the man had a history of bronchial asthma and his condition was life-threatening. A brigade of Cuban doctors has arrived in Nicaragua as the nation readies itself for a possible COVID-19 outbreak. Doctors from the Henry Reeve Medical Brigade will present protocols and a catalog of medicines that have proven to be successful in combating the novel coronavirus. Cuban virologists, epidemiologists, and intensive clinical doctors make up the brigade, which received the full welcome of the Sandinista government. The President of Chile has declared a state of emergency to face the spread of the COVID-19 virus. This declaration also comes after months of massive anti-government protests that demand his resignation.
This state of constitutional emergency makes it possible to issue a series of measures, including restricting meetings in public spaces to avoid large gatherings, ensuring the distribution of basic goods and services, ordering the creation of food reserves, and other goods necessary for the care and subsistence of the population, establishing quarantines or curfews, issuing measures for the protection of services of public utility, and limiting the transit or locomotion of persons.
Venezuela is under a near-total lockdown to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus. This week, the government implemented various emergency health measures across public spaces.
This is one of the busiest markets in Caracas. Thousands of people and hundreds of trucks pass through every day. But from Tuesday, authorities have implemented public safety measures and began limiting the flow of people and monitoring their temperature upon entering the market.
We have placed special sprinkles filled with disinfectant that people pass through. This is an innovation we came up with to comply with the health protocols President Maduro implemented. People are also wearing face masks, but with this we are providing another way to help the eradication of the virus.
The government has ordered people to stay at home and only go out to buy basic necessities or to take care of the elderly. At the current state of the pandemic, social distancing and quarantine are among the most effective measures.
It is the best thing we can do. As long as they manage to track down and register positive cases, we shouldn't panic, but we do have to take drastic measures.
Merchants and business owners lament on the inevitable economic losses, but do understand that there are necessary public health measures to contain the pandemic.
People are worried. Nobody wants to get sick. They need to stay at home, and they shouldn't go out.
Despite hardship and fear, the community hasn't forgotten about those in need, especially children, as they continue to provide meals for them at the local educational center, an alternative for children from low-income families.
We have prepared for this situation, and we keep attending to the needs of children. We remain calm, we promote preventive measures and cleanliness.
Many communities have responded to the public health emergency with working together and helping each other.
Militancy, political will, and solidarity that emerges in these cases made it possible to activate all these plans. Not only did we alert everyone early, but also launch a collective response with the local government.
Despite crippling sanctions, Venezuela is making extraordinary efforts to comply with the recommendations of the World Health Organization to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Sub-Saharan Africa has recorded its first COVID-19 caused death in Burkina Faso. The country's health authorities have announced that out of 27 confirmed cases, a 62-year-old diabetic woman was the first victim.
While we were about to announce the first cures in the patients whose check-ups are due today, we recorded the death of a 60-year-old diabetic patient who was under intensive care during the night of 17 to 18 March at 11:25 p.m. to be precise.
Meanwhile, South Africa has banned cruise ships from entering the nation's ports to curb the spread of the novel coronavirus. COVID-19 cases have reached 116, the highest number recorded in sub-Saharan Africa.
Passenger vessels will be allowed in our ports. In essence, there is a total ban on cruise ships. This affects all leisure travelers with effect from today.
In Nigeria, the government has issued a travel ban on citizens from 13 countries that have been hit the worst by COVID-19.
Federal government will restrict entry to Nigeria of persons from the listed high-burden countries with effect from Friday, March 20th, for a period of 4 weeks initially and subject to review.
Several shops have been left empty in Libya as people rush to buy supplies after the government announced a shutdown to prevent the COVID-19 outbreak. Libya's United Nations recognized government has announced the measures which include the closure of all land borders under its control to keep out the coronavirus. Tripoli's only functioning airport was already shut down due to fighting between GNA forces and Khalifa Haftar fighters. Libya is one of the few African countries which have not yet confirmed any COVID-19 infection. The World Health Organization has warned African countries to be prepared for a sudden increase in cases of the novel coronavirus, as the continent is still the least affected by the outbreak.
Even if we take these 233 cases are true, we have to prepare for the worst. In other countries, we have seen how the virus actually accelerates after a certain tipping point. So the best advice for Africa is to prepare for the worst.
Announced the highest one-day number of COVID-19 deaths recorded in any country since the outbreak started. The Italian Civil Protection Service said 475 people have died from the novel coronavirus over the last 24 hours, surpassing any one-day death toll of any nation since the first case was detected in China late last year. This brings the total number of deaths in Italy to 2,978, more than half of all the cases recorded outside China. Almost 36,000 people are infected by COVID-19 in Italy. As the world continues to battle the rapid spread of the novel coronavirus, cases in China have dropped drastically. What lessons are to be learned from China's response to this pandemic? Let's have a look.
Over 100 countries and regions have reported cases of the novel coronavirus. But as the pandemic spreads across the world, in China, where the epicenter of the pandemic is located, has gotten the situation under control. A group of experts from the World Health Organization that visited the Asian giant highlighted some key measures taken by authorities that turned things around.
In the face of what has been a previously unknown disease, China has taken one of the most ancient strategies for infectious disease control and rolled out probably the most ambitious and I would say agile and aggressive disease containment effort in history.
Stopping the virus became a national emergency. China mobilized a large part of its health system to respond to the outbreak, as over 40,000 health workers were deployed to Hubei province. On top of this, the government covered the costs of both testing and treatment for patients.
No question that China's bold approach to the rapid spread of this new respiratory pathogen has changed the course of what was a rapidly escalating and continues to be deadly. And what they've done has only been possible because of a tremendous collective commitment and will of the Chinese people, from the most bottom level community leaders we met and talked to the governors at the very top.
All the efforts made by China to contain the novel coronavirus happened in record time. Besides building 2 hospitals within 15 days, China also acted swiftly in quarantining confirmed cases and tracking down their close contacts, and in alerting the public of the symptoms of the infection. Finally, they set up a network of hospitals where people could be tested.
The single biggest lesson is speed. Speed is everything. But what worries me most is, has the rest of the world learned the lesson of speed?
According to experts, implementing a quarantine in Hubei was one of the best choices made by the government to limit the spread of the outbreak. But if any measure was successful, it was thanks to the collaboration and discipline of citizens.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute. Welcome back to From the South. New audio recordings have been discovered in Colombia that may prove widespread irregularities and vote buying benefited President Iván Duque during the last general elections. We have more in this report.
These audios could prove the close relationship between María Claudia Hernández, the former advisor to Senator Álvaro Uribe, and Guillermo Hernández, a drug trafficker who participated in alleged vote buying the favor of the current president, Iván Duque.
We had Uribe, and I can show you the chat. When Uribe says to Salgar, Uribe said no. If Ismael told me that they had collected 250 million, that will work for Salgar Antioquia. And they took away my resource of Valledupar, 100 million which were sent out to Salgar.
They didn't send 90 bars to Valledupar.
No, but this was 100 apart from some businessmen.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't even know who was going to handle that money. Goyo had to go to municipality by municipality handing over the money.
As these audios leaked to the general public, the general prosecutor said that they hadn't been in possession of his office.
They were never in possession of the prosecutor's office. We can trace the chain of custody. The analysis of this interception never happened in this office. We had to go to Digin to make an inspection and recover those audios that we now have.
Lawyer Miguel del Rio says he has documents that prove those in charge of the criminal investigation did indeed tell the prosecutor's office about the audios where Ñeñe Hernández talks about alleged vote buying to benefit Iván Duque's campaign.
I have judicial police report sent to the prosecutor's office in May 2019, where he specifies a series of transliterations in relation to calls intercepted between May and October 2018. There is also a DVD and a number of audios, pictures. That is the evidence that the prosecutor had in his possession.
Felicitaciones, señor fiscal.
Legal organizations have asked that an ad hoc prosecutor be named, as the current one has been compromised.
Teniendo en cuenta la relación previa, personal.
Keeping in mind the previous personal and professional relationship between both the prosecutor and President Duque. Until recently, they worked together in the government. Therefore, we would expect that as a result of this conflict of interests, it will be possible to appoint a new prosecutor who has the capacity and independence to supervise possible electoral crimes.
The evidence against former President Álvaro Uribe and President Iván Duque continues to mount as people demand an end to impunity in Colombia.
Former Ugandan Army General and Security Minister Henry Tumukundi has appeared in court over alleged treason charges. Tumukundi was arrested last week after announcing plans to run in presidential elections scheduled for next year. The former ally of President Yoweri Museveni is accused of working with Rwanda to remove the current government. He is also accused of unlawful possession of firearms after 2 pistols were found in his home.
The health of the suspect and our client was not the best because he had been dragged out of a hospital bed to come and be tried in court. So we made a prayer to court to have his personal doctors access him at Luzira, where he's been remanded, and the court agreed with our prayer and ordered that his personal doctors, private doctors, should be in position to access him at Luzira.
Niger's army says it has prevented an attack on a military base by hundreds of Boko Haram fighters. A senior military official said heavily armed Boko Haram members aboard 20 vehicles attacked the base in the early hours of Monday. The soldiers in the base, with the help of reinforcements from the Special Intervention Battalion, were able to prevent the group from overrunning the camp. 50 assailants were killed during the attack. The South African Communist Party has welcomed the decision by the country's Ministry of Justice to deny parole to Janus Walus, the killer of the party's former leader and liberation icon Chris Hani. A statement by the party said Walus is, quote, an unrepentant, cold-blooded assassin who must not be granted parole. Walus is serving a life sentence for the 1993 murder of Hani, who served as Secretary General of the Communist Party and member of the African National Congress. Moving on, Telesur's team in Brazil has been traveling through the microregion of Jalapão. Long considered a natural paradise, it is now in danger due to encroaching agribusiness interests working alongside far-right President Jair Bolsonaro.
The state of Tocantins is located near the center of Brazil's territory. In here, you can find the Jalapão Park, a natural paradise with no easy access. The environmentally protected area measures about 160,000 hectares and is rich in biodiversity and drinking water, with countless springs, rivers, streams, and transparent lagoons, known as fervedouros, where underground water flows from wells do not allow sinking, all in a vast tropical savanna known as the Cerrado.
A poet from Brasilia once compared the biome to the famous Brazilian footballer Garrincha by saying that the trees of the Cerrado, the lakes of Garrincha, not everything that is crooked is wrong. The trees in this region are crooked, and they appear to have little value, but the biodiversity here is incredible. It's one of the most biodiverse regions in the planet.
But the Jalapão has become an oasis in jeopardy. Deforestation around the park is advancing, with encroaching soybean and corn crops. Over the next 10 years, a 36% growth in the production of transgenic grains is expected in Tocantins. Thus, the area given to agribusiness will increase by 33% and reach almost 2 million hectares. Yamila Golfarb, a specialist in the business of agriculture, explains that the green desert is a symbol of the relocation of financial capital after the 2008 economic crisis by obtaining land in the global south.
So this occupation of the Brazilian Cerrado is an expansion that comes with foreign capital. That is the reason for the purchase of land, because it is large-scale production.
Tocantins is by far the state with the highest contamination by toxic agrochemicals in northern Brazil. 121 municipalities, including the capital city of Palmas, have registered 27 types of agrochemicals in the water. This means that 87% of the municipalities are contaminated. It is also the state where the greatest increase in irrigation is expected.
The logic is of commodities production that leads to the increase in water pollution, because agrotoxins go into the soil. They are related things, the great acquisition of land for the production of commodities.
The Cerrado is home to 16% of Brazil's water sources, and with the exception of the Pampa Gaucha, unites the rest of the biomes of a country that occupies half of South America. The encroaching of agribusiness over its biodiversity puts access to water for the region and species that inhabit it at risk.
We'll take one last break. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. 3 U.S. states headed to the polls on Tuesday to select their candidates for the Democratic primaries. Joe Biden won in both Florida and Illinois and is expected to win in Arizona as well. Ohio was the only state scheduled to hold a primary, which opted to postpone last minute. While citizens are chattering over coronavirus concerns and some cities have taken major steps to try to halt the spread, states like Florida pushed ahead with smaller than usual crowds.
Today, it looks like once again, in Florida and Illinois, We're still awaiting to hear from Arizona. Our campaign has had a very good night. We've moved closer to securing the Democratic Party's nomination for president. And we're doing it by building a broad coalition that we need to win in November.
China has announced that it would expel U.S. journalists from 3 major U.S. newspapers, saying the expulsions were in retaliation to Washington's decision to cut the number of Chinese nationals allowed to work for its state-run media on U.S. soil.
We are against this ideological prejudice against China, the production of fake news under the pretext of press freedom, and the violation of the professional ethics of journalism. We hope that foreign media and journalists can play an active role in promoting mutual understanding between China and the world. We will offer support and convenience to the normal reporting work of foreign journalists in China as always.
Spanish people protested from their balconies against former King Juan Carlos over money he is alleged to have received from Saudi Arabia. Protesters who are in self-quarantine due to the COVID-19 outbreak banged pans and pots, condemning the $100 million transfer the king allegedly received via an offshore account. They demanded the money to be donated to public health. In Nicaragua, the capital city's government delivered the first 100 houses to beneficiaries of the Bismarck Martínez program, a social housing program promoted by President Daniel Ortega.
To the tune of typical dances, the first 100 houses were delivered, and authorities assure that 400 more will be given throughout the year 2020.
These are the results of our people's commitment to their job. We thank God because we are being part of the wonderful transformation of these families' lives. There are 18,000 brothers and sisters that are waiting to be assigned a home.
Being a Nicaraguan of legal age, not owning a house or an estate, as well as having a valid identification, a birth certificate, and proof of income are some of the requirements to be part of this social program, which offers a home to vulnerable families.
It's a relief to have something of our own, something we can leave to our children. Thank God we can pay what we can according to our budget, to our work, to our effort. My family are my 2 kids and my husband.
The lands offered are 180 square meters in size, and houses measure 54 square meters. The buildings, of course, have electricity, running water, 1 bathroom, and they cost just $40 a month.
I am very excited because I didn't have a home before. Now I have it. I used to rent a place, I used to move from one place to another, and now I'll have security, stability, and a place where we can live.
In April, the next 100 homes will be delivered, and the goal is to deliver 50,000 more homes over the next 7 years, out of which 20,000 will be in the capital.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And be sure to follow us on social media as well. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.